Brianna.
Yeah, just make a line so we can keep going. Because, you can ask about the state of the art, you can ask about really anything except politics.
Come line up.
Hi. I didn't fully form this question yet, but can you think of a time in your career where you felt kind of stuck and you were just kind of, I don't know, just kind of in the space and not really feeling like you're needed in that space or in the space of singing and things, and how would you
You're talking
how
about
would you
the
give
actual,
advice for?
you're talking about actual work,
Yes.
right? Actually getting hired and getting your
Yeah.
career started. Are you postgraduate or
I'm a first-year master's student here.
first-year master's student?
Mhm.
Okay, so yeah, of course. I mean, everybody has the lull, and it's typically postgraduate, pre-professional. But I have a lot of colleagues who also go through periods of time where they're not working consistently. And opera companies now, the ones that are still going, and Dr. Griffith can speak to this as well, are hiring much later than they used to. And sometimes not even casting until, just before the season starts. So we're finding some changes in the way the business is run. Can you speak to that about Houston?
Yes, I was just hired for an opera that I'm doing next spring about a month ago.
Yeah.
So they're hiring much later.
Right.
And I understand the lull between graduate school and entering the professional world, because when I left here, I went to Juilliard for the artist diploma, and then I was in the Met Young Artist program after that. But I never had any idea when I was leaving here what I was going to do next. It was 2 weeks before Juilliard started classes that I was a student at Juilliard. So,
Right.
but opera
Yeah.
companies are hiring.
Well, and I came
later.
very close to quitting singing altogether because I just thought the universe was telling me that it wasn't meant to be, and it was because of the frustration in that particular period. But the thing you have to remember is that since you're here and you're still being educated, is to just use that time as wisely and as fastidiously as you can, because the world is so competitive. In fact, I generally recommend that you always kind of have another idea or another thought about what you might do, because there are just so few people who actually end up singing professionally and being able to make a living doing it. And that's, that's true now. Where I am seeing a huge amount of promise is in new opera. So if you're a good musician and you like to learn new music, and you're theatrical and you love to act, there's work there, and it's a lot of it. There's a lot going on. You're not going to make a lot of money or sing in huge theaters, and but you will be artistically very, very, I think, satisfied.
Thank you, Brianna.
Hello, my name's Yvonne Trobe. I'm a second-year master, and very similarly, for some of us that are now starting to go through this process and hitting that wall of rejection a lot, what are some tips that you have to get through that rejection phase, or that, like, oh, woe is me, feeling faster? Like, is it ice cream? I don't know.
Primal screen, right? So, summer programs are important. Keep working, keep trying to train as much as you can if you can afford to, because a lot of them now are paying. I mean, a lot of young singers in New York pay to play. They're paying to have performances so they can be heard. That's a sort of a strange catch-22. The ones that I know who eventually start to work are resilient and determined. But I would also give yourself a cutoff point, because it can be very frustrating at some point, and you'll think, gosh, there must be other ways I can contribute. I mean, I have a young singer in my office now who realized that she was not probably going to, she went to a competition in Germany and heard the level and realized that she was not at that level. And so now she is incredibly important to me as somebody who's working with me on a lot of projects. So, there are lots of ways you can contribute in this business that are that don't necessarily mean being an opera star. You have to be creative about that. Yo-Yo Ma loves to talk about going into your own communities and creating your own work and really telling the community they need you. You didn't know it, but you need me to perform here. And here's where I'm going to do it and how I'm going to do it. So that's, in fact, Kurt Elling, the jazz singer, talked about going into a pizzeria and saying, I'm just going to sing for free here in the corner. Do you mind? And then, can I have a piece of pizza? I'm going to sing for a piece of pizza. And then eventually he built up from there, and now, of course, he's our greatest jazz baritone. So sometimes you have to really be creative about how to make a place for yourself. It is hard. There's no question. I remember, like it was yesterday, the sense of rage and frustration. And I've been educated, and I thought that I was going to be okay, and now it's just not happening. And then click, one door opens, and everybody else says, she's not bad. It takes one courageous impresario to give you a chance, and then you better come through. I have other young singers I knew who got those chances, and I had reflux, I had this, I had that, and you rarely get a second chance, right? I mean, Tony, it's so competitive.
It's very competitive, and what Ms. Fleming, I think she and I would agree, that you have to keep your individuality. The world wants the next best you, not a carbon copy of someone else. And for me, was very important in my career, was to realize, I can sing Rodolfo, but there are a lot of other guys that sing Rodolfo 10 times better than I sing Rodolfo. So I took on all these big character roles like Peter Grimes and Linian of Mice and Men and Mitch and Streetcar Named Desire, where you have to sing well, but you also have to act well. So it's important, I think.
Right, you created your own
I created
niche.
my own path, and that's important to do.
That's one way to do it, absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Hi, my name's Emily. I'm a second-year master's student, and I have a question about how you are able to take material from your life that you might be going through in a personal way and bring that to the stage and to the characters that you play, finding a way to be intimate with your audience without crossing a personal boundary about what might be difficult to encounter personally.
I love this question because, we always think about when we're on stage, so we're playing this character, but who are we really? I mean, it's very hard to kind of pretend you're an 18th century character. So you have to always translate the situation into your own emotional makeup and your own emotional history. I think because we all experience loss, we all experience, sadness and joy, and all of these human emotions are built into these characters. So I always think about it in that way. I mean, and some people are very good at just being able to imagine and be there, but I've found it helpful with certain characters to relate them to my own life. And someone like the Marshallin, it's been very easy. I mean, we've grown up together in the last 20 years. So when I first sang her in my mid-30s, it made perfect sense to me that, oh my God, this poor thing, she's lost this horrible thing. And then as I became older, and more importantly, as I sort of had experience in life, I saw the side of her that was her authoritative side, that was her position in life, the fact that she had little freedom. You begin to learn, you have to delve into the history of the period, understand with certain roles what a courtesan was in the 19th century and the 18th century, and how that differs from today. So it's a little bit of both. But the emotion that you're experiencing when you're singing a part or when you're taking on a role is real. You want to push the envelope and go so far that we feel that you're emotional. We feel that you're connected to the material, but we don't see you falling apart and then think, oh, poor thing, is she going to make it through the next phrase? Because then you suddenly lose the audience. You never want the audience to think about you. You want them to think about what you're saying or singing. Does that make sense? I worked with Jana Gaetani here, and she helped me with this, because she said, do all your crying in the practice room so that when you're on stage, the audience cries.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I had a similar experience in Mice and Men. The final phrase I sing is, it's our home, George, our home. It's our home, and the last home is on a high B natural. And I'd never owned anything in my life, and I was about to buy my mom a house. And I felt it at City Opera, it just got caught. And so, it's, as Ms. Fleming said, working through those emotions off stage. So you're making your audience feel, but you're not so much, feeling that. You're feeling the intensity, but not letting it get into your voice.
Do you know, I just saw The Tempest on at the Don Mar Warehouse production of The Tempest at St. Anne's Warehouse in Brooklyn, and the great actress Harriet Walters was playing Prospero, and this was their last performance after doing this piece for 7 months together with this all-female cast. So understandably, they would be emotional, but her very most famous line in the play, which is, we're but the stuff of air or something like that. Her voice broke, and I couldn't understand the line, and I thought, oh, well, that's gone. So, obviously, all forgiven because of the power of the whole performance, but that's what you risk when you allow yourself to go too far. But you guys are young; you can try everything. You can really explore, and don't. I wouldn't inhibit yourself at this point. So, anything else? Yay.
Hello. So I have a question about Europe. I keep hearing this, you gotta go to Europe thing. And now when I start considering maybe that would be an option, then lots of questions rise. So if I would consider, let's say, going to Germany, what would be the perfect recipe for the transition? Like, do I get in touch with coaches before going there? Do you get in touch with management companies? Do you just go there to the airport and say, here, I'm in Europe? Or what is the thing of going to Europe? I am from Europe, so it's not a big deal to go to Europe, but how to make that transition, I guess, to American education and then to transfer to...
Where are you from?
I'm from Lithuania.
Oh, okay. So, gosh, this is that one of those horrible catch-22s, because when I was starting out, you couldn't get a job unless you had a manager, and you couldn't get a manager unless you had a job that they could hear you singing, and you just thought, huh? How does that make sense? And it's the same now, because I know lots of young singers who are trying to find their way to the audition circuit, but it's very hard to get in, to even get an audition. Some people write letters to the artistic administrators of theaters. Some people write letters to managers and try and get auditions with managers. And all of these things are next to impossible. Some people pay a lot of money to sing in New York for, what is that called? ESOP or something like that. It's an organization that brings people over. And there are some people who get jobs through that. I just met a mezzo at the Met who was about to go home and was hired to sing at the Met, a whole bunch of contracts. So there are lots of ways of doing it, all of which are very hard. I know that's a terrible answer, but summer programs, if you can get into the studio in Salzburg in the summer somehow, because those programs, typically, you can at least apply to them. People hear you. There are summer programs in Graz, in Italy, and they're all over Europe, and that's an option. It helps to have money to be able to afford to go to some of these, too. And I've seen a lot of people save up money, go over for an audition tour, sing 2 auditions, and get nothing and come home. So it's very challenging. I came on the map with competitions, and most of them really were a failure. I mean, some of them got worse, actually. When I go back and do it the second time, I went less far than I did the first time. And you just have to try all of these different routes, I think, and do the best you can. And believe in yourself. I mean, and continue to improve your skills. I mean, you just have to, you can't stop working on your skills. You have to have range, performance level. Your repertoire has to fit what you look like and who you are, and it has to be repertoire that people need. So, I think I can't think of any, can you think of anything to add to that?
No. No, but you're a wonderful actress, and what Ms. Fleming said earlier about practicing in front of the mirror and honing in your craft, and I've seen you perform, and you're well on your way to that.
Good. Oh, excellent. Yeah. And it does help, actually, that you have a European passport, I think. I mean, that makes it easier. you know, especially now. Yes.
Hi, do you have any good tips on how to keep your voice healthy?
Hi, oh my gosh, how old are you?
12.
12, fantastic. Are you singing already?
Starting, yeah.
Starting to, good. Well, thank you for coming to the class. Yeah, healthy, absolutely. You have to stay hydrated. You have to be careful about yelling and screaming and how you use your voice. Definitely get enough rest. So live in moderation has been my motto. I try not to be too neurotic about the voice. And, you know, I tend to believe in my own immune system and the power of it. But the main thing I see in young voices is they're trying to copy more mature voices, whether in popular music or in classical, and that can be problematic. What kind of music do you sing?
Just normal music, like Christian music usually.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So are you singing choruses also?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that sounds good. Have you had any issues with vocal health?
No, not really.
Okay.
Just
Well,
how to keep it strong.
keep it strong, exactly. Well, so it's more about age-appropriate singing, and, you know, really keeping it light and not getting too tired. And it's also, you have to sort of, because a lot of young people want to sing in musicals too, and a lot of the musicals that are kind of pop based require high belt, and that can be hard on the voice. So have you sung anything like that? Matilda, you know, Annie, those kinds of roles?
Not really.
Okay,
Just
well
scared.
then you're probably in good shape. Thank you. Good question. Well, hi.
Hi, Adam.
My name is Adam, and I have a question a little bit about the industry and the value of art song and kind of how that fits in, because I know there's been a shift of people talking about, you know, you have to have a career before you can really do recital rep, and if you think that there are ways kind of for that to fit into our careers as we're trying to take off, because that's basically a lot of what our training is in programs like
Right.
this.
Oh, I'm so happy you asked that. So right now, I mean, in my sort of career lifetime, that's definitely been true, that an opera career enables you to get hired. You know, a successful opera career was required before you could sing art song and be hired to sing recitals, but opera really doesn't train you to sing recitals well. So that was a sort of an odd thing. And now, right at the moment, there's very little, almost no market for recitals, which makes me very sad. But however, I'm going to work really hard to change that, and I would love to have your help, and all of you, in fact, because it was just announced that I'm taking over Marilyn Horn's project at Carnegie Hall. The Song Continues. And what I would love to do is think about your generation recreating the whole idea of the recital for your peers. You know, not in a concert hall, but in a coffee house or in a club, or somehow mixing it up so that it becomes more palatable, and so that the combination of music and poetry becomes the same as lyrics and a song. So I would love for us to kind of meet up and talk about that sometime in the next year, and maybe just have a session where we think about ways of bringing this fabulous repertoire. I love it so much. You sing it beautifully, and bringing it to your own generation. Do you think it's possible?
I hope so.
Yeah. It's funny, one of my daughters said, she heard me talking about this, and she said, well, Mom, when she was in college, she said, you know, the only people who came to any of the musical things we did were other musicians. And I said, well, what would you have to do to expand that? To just include people who like music? So that's the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Yay.
And I think it's important, many of you have degree recitals, and I always reiterate this fact, to take those degree recitals out into the public, go into the nursing homes, the hospitals,
Right.
the prisons. I did all those things because I was extremely shy and had horrible stage fright as a performer, and I know Ms. Fleming can relate to that. But not just to work so hard on your recital and then not perform it anywhere else. Take it back home and perform it. All these
Right.
people that grew up with you want to hear
Would
you.
love to hear it. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how we still continue to build recitals.
Right.
Hi, my name is John. I'm a freshman viola performance major, so today's master class was a little different for me because I noticed something. You worked a lot on expressive techniques, and that's something that all musicians share. So as a violist, how would you say I could work on breath control to help in high-stress situations on stage to stay relaxed and like the straw thing? I don't know if I could do that.
Wow, that's so neat that you're asking this. That's great. Definitely, I think breath, if you, in high stress, breathing can help anybody, really. I mean, it's something that I think for public speakers, for actors, for people who use their voices in general, having a sense of support and a sense of really breath control. So for you, you might want to, for instance, if you're nervous, just take a deep breath and give your hissing exercise. That's a good one for that, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Until you expel all the air that you have in.
Right, because
that really releases and connects the breath for me.
That's a good one. Yeah, exactly. Or just doing that, taking a deep breath. And you definitely want to be connected to the body and be relaxed and make sure especially your upper body is relaxed. Do you ever have tension or neck tension, any of that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so, I mean, I have to work with massage. I carry around the AcuMassager, which looks quite interesting, I should say. It's a long plastic tube with two balls in the middle. And I use it all the time when I'm rehearsing with orchestras, and it's quite a great conversation piece. But basically, it'll squeeze your neck and your trapezius muscles. Okay. And really better than if somebody was trying to work on them for you. So that I definitely recommend. But the expressive piece, I always think, string instruments, I always think it's good if you breathe. If you when people do play Morgan with me and they never lift the bow, I get claustrophobic. I just want to hear the phrasing. Isaac Stern used to talk about this all the time. I want to hear the phrasing that kind of mirrors a little bit what a singer would do. Those are just some thoughts.
And it's funny, in my teaching, I ask my students to sing like a cellist, the way you bow and you phrase. And I know you guys want to imitate singers in your phrasing. Yeah. So we work hand in hand together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
My name is Rachel Kobernick, and I'm a freshman here. And for someone who is really, really early in this process, and I think for a lot of us, do you have any tips on how to best make use of these 4 years, or is it better to be less ambitious, more ambitious?
Well, I just remember that you're doing a million things, and it's very hard just to keep up with what is required of you. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So I thought it was helpful to just sort of have playtime in the practice room and read through music just because I loved it, even if it was totally inappropriate. Sorry. and just to stay in love with music. Don't have it always be about something that you need to prepare. But then when you're preparing, my biggest advice is text, is work really hard with the text, particularly foreign languages. If you don't master language, if you're serious about singing professionally and you don't use this time wisely with language, you're just going to be playing catch up. Mm-hmm. So that would be a big recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thanks. How many freshmen are here? Oh yeah. How many graduate students? Wow. Oh my goodness. All you singers, I love it. Hi.
Hello, I'm Erica. I'm a second-year doctoral trumpet student, and I'm about to embark. Well, basically, I'm doing a lot of competitions and international competitions, and I guess I have just wanted to know if you have any advice on the preparation and the mindset and actually being there.
Yes, definitely. Competitions it's its own thing, so I think you have to remind yourself that everyone who's hearing you wants you to succeed. They want every person who comes out to be great. So we sort of go into we're going to be judged mindset, and a kind of and it makes us small, and it makes us afraid to perform. So rather than thinking about that, if you come out and imagine, I always think what helped me the most was to imagine, A, that it's a performance, and B, that I'm really just the vehicle, that the music flows through me, and I'm expressing it, as opposed to, so the energy is going from here out to them in a kind of a spirit of generosity and of giving and of sharing. And the minute I transferred to that way of thinking, and this was for me for performance, I was having a lot of stage fright, as opposed to the energy was coming to me and it was not pretty. It was judgmental, it was, you're not good enough, it was, well, that was, the minute I switched from that thinking to this thinking, I did much better, and the doors started to open. So, I mean, and you just imagine that you've worked hard, you have just as much right to be there as anybody else who's competing, and you're gonna share to, and one other thought, you're gonna share to the best of your ability on that day. There's no perfection, it's always gonna be great, it's just, that's the best I could do on that day. And even though I'm nervous, I can still do this. So a lot of things, you have to create these statements for yourself and repeat them. They all must be positive, none of them negative, and you have to be your own best cheerleader. Oh, I'm so glad you asked me that.
Thank you.
Is that
Appreciate
helpful?
it. Yeah, a lot.
Oh,
Thanks.
do you have anything to add to that, Tony?
No, I just remind, as Ms. Fleming said, there's no perfect performance. And if you have a little bobble on a note, don't continue to rewind that. The story continues, it goes forward.
Right.
I'm
Well, that's
always
hard.
reminding myself of that. My
That takes discipline. You got to move on.
taught me that. I was singing in Germany with him, and I had a little bit of a quabble on a note, and I think he could tell that I was pressing rewind the rest of the performance, because I was focusing on one note, and I sang hundreds of notes that night that were pretty good. But you have to get out of that mindset of it's only one note, and it's about music and storytelling, or for you, it's about playing your trumpet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it takes, it takes a certain, I used to have to pretend I was a confident person. So that was an acting exercise. I would walk, I had confident friends. Who knows, maybe they were pretending too. But I would walk on and pretend I was them. That worked too. That was helpful.
And it's important to know that, your audience wants to be fed. When you come out here, they're hungry, and we're here to feed them. And it's a collaboration between you and the audience. It's not just you on the stage performing. They want to be fed, and you have something to say as an artist. We all do.
Yeah,
that's
if you're not sharing and if you're not loving the audience, then you're cheating them.
Right.
You're thinking about yourself, you're self-conscious, that's sort of boring. So really make it about them, it's true. Okay, one more question. I think we're done.
Well, I'm going to cheat, and I have two questions. I'm sorry. One of them's about recording. I'm embarking on a big, it's like a 2-hour, actually, recording thing for Messiaen. And
wow, great.
I guess I wanted some advice on that.
Okay.
The only recordings I've done were like pre-screening, and those were, in a room somewhere.
So are you playing? Are you?
Yes, I'm playing. Yeah. I'm a pianist.
Pianist, okay, good. So you have to really set up your sound correctly from the beginning. Make sure you're happy with the sound, with the microphone placement. There's so much that can be done. Even changing not only the type of microphone, but the way it's set up, whether it's omni or sort of more directional. You have to be happy with the placement of the piano. Do you want the lid up? Do you want the lid on? There are a million tiny, tiny little changes that will completely change how your recording sounds in the end. Then you have to be super happy with the mix. How much acoustic, how much reverb do you want? How bright or dark do you want the piano to sound? Is it the right instrument? So, this is before you even sit down and play.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how intricate it is once you get into recording, and how frustrating it can be too, because you do all that work and you'll get to the end and you'll get the result. Oh, and then, by the way, after you're done and the whole recording gets compressed, which they do now in almost everything, the sound's different. And you think, that's not what it sounded like when we finished the mix. So, it's hard, but it's also very rewarding when you're happy with it.
Okay. And I guess my other project, I'm writing an opera, and I want to, I guess I want to ask, in you guys is doing new operas, you know, working with the composers, what is just the most annoying thing that composers do so I don't do it? I'll do my own annoying things, but what is yours?
Well, I don't think it's annoying, but I find that composers, there are kind of two styles of writing for voice. One is declamatory, so it's sort of, you know, pitch, it's speech on pitch to get text across, and the other is more lyrical. And opera works best when there's a lot of variety in the type of vocal writing. When the ensembles are mapped out, 2 people, 4 people, you have to make a map. And then I also find that an annoying thing that's happening lately is the composers think it's very cute to write for singers in the most extreme part of their range. And, you know, it's just, why? I mean, you know, I can see it for certain passages, but to write an entire role in some impossible place not only potentially harms the singer, but it's not that interesting for the public. You know, it's sort of dull after a while. But those are my pet peeves. But opera's incredibly hard because there's the musical piece, the musical language needs to be interesting and have variety in it. There's the vocal writing piece. There's, can you hear everyone all the time so you understand the text? And does the storytelling work over a long stretch? It's, you know, I'm glad you're trying. I'm good. What's the story? What's it based on?
It's this guy went into the woods for 27 years and robbed a village for food and supplies, and he got caught, and they didn't know what to do. They thought it was a ghost the whole time, and they find it was just this creep.
How many people are in the opera? Is it the village and the guy?
It's the village and the guy and the guy's woodland fairy lover and his ex. It's pretty big.
Oh, good. That sounds good. I like that it's original. I love that it's original. You know, there too many people are nervous to do that, so they use something tried and true. You know, whether it's a piece that people already know or, and that I love. That sounds really interesting to me. I would go hear that.
Thank you.
Do you have something to add to
And
that?
I would just add, you know, if you're a composer, I think it's important to understand the voice and take some voice lessons. I know you're a pianist, but take some voice lessons and understand how the voice works, how, you know, where most tenors like to sing, where sopranos like to sing.
Because range is
range is important. I've done a lot of contemporary operas that are quite rangy.
What composers never understand is tessitura.
Right.
That's a tough thing to explain. So if you take some lessons, you could figure that out pretty quickly. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.